Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's Entrepreneur Show. I am Heidi Richards Mooney, your host, the founder of Women in E-Commerce and the president of the Entrepreneur Show. I'm delighted today to have a very special guest. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Today's interview is called An Up Close and Personal Interview with Jianny Adamo, author of From Love Trauma to Fearless Love. So, let me tell you about Jianny. She is a psychotherapist, a relationship coach, and founder of Fearless Love Relationship Coaching and Counseling in Delray Beach, Florida. Establishing the center in 2001, 1 year after her own divorce, Jianny's on a mission to help individuals and couples create safe and intimate marriages and fearless, loving relationships. Her new book, From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, is a tale of emotional, spiritual, and sexual recovery from abuse at the hands of a predator. With the explosion of the Me Too movement, this book is especially relevant as From Love Trauma to Fearless Love illuminates how calculating and a narcissist can be, and reveals profound truths about the gut-wrenching reality a woman faces when she unwittingly gets caught in a web of lies and deception. The book also highlights the cycle of violence that is typical of sexual abuse for both men and women. Welcome, Jianny. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I always love interviewing amazing women who are on a mission to change the world, and you certainly are one of those. So let's talk about what inspired you to write From Love Trauma to Fearless Love.
Okay, so what inspired me to write From Love Trauma to Fearless Love was that I became a target of a sweet and charming sociopath. Of course, I had no idea he was one. So one of the reasons why I wrote the book was I needed to understand what had happened to me, what was this relationship about, and who was the person I was so in love with, to find out that this person wasn't even real, that this was all a fake persona. It was all facades. It was all manipulations and all about control. This was a different type of relationship. I've never had been involved with a sociopathic or narcissistic man before. And just to kind of backtrack, I am divorced, but my ex-husband and I have a very good relationship, even as divorcees. We're still good friends, and our families still love one another, and they still invite us for the holidays. So, we don't have any of that drama. This did not come through my marriage. It came upon my divorce. That's how I got targeted. I became quite vulnerable. I had moved down to South Florida to start over. And because I did not know about narcissists and sociopaths and how they groom and how they target, I ultimately became a prey. And then I had to come out of that relationship to understand and know what had happened to me in order to come out of my trauma. So that's how I birthed From Love Trauma to Fearless Love. It was a journey to help me to heal that turned into a journey to help other victims and survivors of narcissists and sexual predators and sociopaths, how to understand what happened to them and how to let go of all this insanity, because it's complete insanity what happens to us, and get to the other side.
You know, what's amazing is that the fact that you took something so traumatic and you were able to turn that into something so positive to help other people. A lot of people can't do that. So first of all, I want to applaud you for your courage, because I think that's really, and I think a lot of us, I've experienced abuse when I was a young kid. And so growing up, I pretty much put it away and compactly into this box and never dealt with it. So when I became an adult, I had to deal with it, because in order to have healthy relationships, I think you need to deal with trauma at some point. And I'm sure you could talk about that. So let's talk about the things that supported you in your healing journey.
Okay, so some of the things that supported me was, first, when you are in a state of trauma and you are in a place that you're quite disoriented, you're quite distressed, you don't have much trust anymore in yourself or humanity or people in general. The problem is you've been betrayed. You've been betrayed big time in the most intimate, most personal way you could possibly be betrayed. So the first thing that happens is you have to start recognizing who are the toxic people around you. And you need to set up some really strong boundaries with them. And that's one of the first things I realized. So I did a lot of different things to get through, to support my healing. And the first one was I needed to move all the toxic people out of my inner circle, out of my friendship circles. They went into the acquaintanceship and beyond. Some of them flew right off the circles. Yes. So that was the first thing that I took ownership, that I needed to move toxic people away from my inner circles and my friendship circles. Then I created a tribe of like 8 to 10 people that truly were my safe people who know me very well. And that included siblings, best friends, acquaintances that had gone through horrific situations themselves and had been already on the other side. Spiritual mentors, therapists, because I went through more than one therapist. I went to several of them because each of them had different strengths and information that I needed to understand what had happened to me, because this was really an outer world experience for me. I had never really encountered someone before that did not possess a conscience. So all that was brand new for me, and I needed to understand that world. So I created, like I said, a tribe of people who supported my healing and had patience for me. One of the things that hurt me greatly as I was going through my healing were the friends, the so-called friends who had no tolerance or patience for my journey. So are you done yet? Are you healed yet? Are you finished with your trauma? Oh my God, you're still angry. Oh my God, you're still in grief. Are you finished? Those people went out to the outer layer. They were not friends. So that was very hurtful to me. So this is why that is an extremely important piece to finding the people who will support your journey and can believe your stories, because you yourself don't believe what just happened to you because it's so out of the box, it's so otherworldly. There was something else that happened for me in my healing journey that was unexpected, and that's that I had been dancing and learning the Argentine tango right around the time that the relationship ended, and the relationship ended with a rape. That's what happened.
Oh, God.
I was raped, and thus I went into full-blown trauma. With the full-blown trauma, the first phase of trauma is disbelief and denial. So you cannot accept that this just happened. I attribute it to a mistake. I'm like, okay, it was a mistake. But I was still traumatized, but that was the box I could throw this in. He made a mistake. So I waited for an entire year, waiting for him to apologize for how he had mistreated me and violated me, so that at least we can part as friends, not have animosity and have closure. But I didn't understand I was involved at that point with a sociopath who actually exploits our need for closure. So they don't give us closure at all, because that will instigate and infuse more drama and trauma to us who are always seeking closure and to have things nice. Okay, so while I was in waiting for this apology and thinking that this person was going to come to their senses and take responsibility for how the relationship had ended, I became obsessed with the Argentine tango.
Oh.
The Argentine tango is danced in close embrace, and we are held. We hold one another. It's a hug. We feel loved. We feel warm and fuzzy. We feel safe. And in that safety of that embrace, I also connected deeply, instinctively to the music of the Argentine tango, to the tango. And I then moved creatively. So I had body movement, I had an embrace, and I had a deep connection to the music and surrendering to this embrace and to the music and to my lead. It had all the right ingredients for all the love hormones, the cascade of love hormones to be released. And this is part of our brain that is responsible for love. and is also responsible for helping us to feel safe and to helping us feel at peace, helping us to feel satisfied in life, to feel that tranquility and zen. That's all part of the love hormones. It's a whole cocktail of them. So something like the Argentine tango or a hobby or nature can release a whole bunch of them, but the Argentine tango has a more powerful source of releasing that because it's coming in through two ways. Not only is it the hobby, and movement and the music, but it's also you're being held, and physical touch is extremely powerful for us as human beings. Extremely powerful. So it had all the ingredients for me to be sustained, to be upheld while I was going through my journey of healing. So bottom line, as I'm waiting, I become a big time tango dancer and performer. In the meantime, I'm reading every book I could possibly find on narcissists and sociopaths and trauma, and interviewing people in the side of the justice system, the psychology side. I was under a lot of, like I said, I went through my own therapy. I went through. I have spiritual mentors. So I'm very motivated. Like when I'm focused on something and my focus was healing, I could move heaven and earth just to get what I need so I can figure out what's happening and resolve my problems in the best way possible. So the Argentine tango became a pivotal ingredient in my healing. Thus, the book, which I wrote, is From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, and I'll put it up here so you can see.
Yes.
It's From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, and the subtitle is 7 Tango Steps for Breaking Free from Narcissists and Predators. So the tango is very important in my life and in its center stage here in this book, because the lessons on love between a man and a woman, between two people, is coming through the lessons in the tango. So it's a metaphor for love. Okay, so that's how I'm using the tango. And as you know, when we go through like an abusive relationship, the abuser rewires our brain. So this is why it was very important for me to rewrite the lessons on love through the tango, because we need to relearn what love is. Because the abuser, the narcissist, has now fused love with abuse. And anything that we bring love with, we fuse it into one. So one of the things, for instance, I never liked science fiction movies. But the predator I was involved with, the narcissist I was involved with, loved science fiction and loved fantasies, loved them. And because I was so flooded with all these love hormones and I was so in love, everything that we did together, I loved and has become part of me even today. So I wrote this book as a fantasy. Why? Because I learned to love fantasy with the relationship that I had, which probably takes us to another question, which is, what can we learn from all of this? And the reality is that every relationship that we have comes to us for a reason. There are no mistakes in life, not one. As dark and as heinous as this relationship was, as confusing and debilitating as this relationship was for me, I have learned so much, and there are so many pearls of wisdom that I have gained. There was so much freedom in my life today because I had to wrestle with this brokenness. I had to wrestle with this trauma, and I continued to wrestle until I got to the other side. So some of the things that hopefully you can learn from my book is the targeting and the grooming. And this is important because as the victim, we're blaming ourselves.
Yeah.
We think that all this went down because somehow we didn't understand, we didn't see, we stayed too long.
You attract it. You think you attract it. You think it's because you're who you are. I know so many. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners will feel the same way. But do you think and I know the answer to this. Do you think that whole experience it had to make you a better therapist, a better relationship expert and coach, and help so many other people? I'm sure that no one would ever want to go through what you went through, but the fact that you went through it has to be that one thing that was able to help you help others even on a greater level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that statement. One of the things that I've learned is that what made me a target, because like I said, they target and they groom, are actually all of my strengths. Those things made me a target. You know, the myth out there is that only people with low self-esteem get targeted by these narcissists and predators and sociopaths, but that's a myth. Anyone can fall trap and prey to these individuals as long as you don't know what the red flags are for them, because they're quite sweet and charming and charismatic. And they can be quite kind in the beginning and helpful, and they speak the same language as you because they mimic your words. With my predator, he supposedly was spiritual, and he was a lot of fun. So we were able to speak a lot the same language in the area of our spirituality, which of course was all a game, and it was all a mimicking of who I am to mirror it back to me so I could feel safe. So it's all a facade. And you understand that as you go through the healing, that none of it was real. So what happened for me was I was able to embrace all my vulnerabilities, which were actually my strengths. So I was able to honor myself for those strengths. I was able to honor myself for being vulnerable and for being human. I was able to then grow in a level of compassion for myself that grew to the level of destruction that I was embracing in my life.
Right.
So if you never had to suffer that greatly, you don't understand compassion. You only understand it to the level that you've experienced it.
Right.
So because the floor fell out from underneath me and I just fell into a dark abyss, which is what normally happens to us who have been involved with a complete fraud, then my love, my self-compassion, all had to grow at that same level. And I was actually in awe as I was in the midst of my pain, because again, I analyze and I'm able to like step outside and analyze and see what's happening to me. I would look at myself and I'm crumbled up in pain and I'm like, I've never experienced so much self-compassion. I've never experienced so much self-love until I had to be in that place. So what that translates is my self-compassion and my self-love has grown to a capacity that I didn't even know existed. And that actually is also available to my clients, to my friends, and the world beyond me. Yes.
Wonderful.
And then I understand stuff that I had no capacity to understand prior to this violation.
So you mentioned a couple of things. First of all, you talked about, removing yourself from people that were toxic in your relationship. And you also talked about the fact that some of them didn't understand why it was taking you so long to get over this. And wouldn't you agree that people all heal at a different rate? It's like an open wound. Some people heal from a wound quickly and others take a lot longer. I think emotionally it's the same thing. It all has to do with our past experiences. I think from my own experience, having gone through a traumatic childhood, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I think it made me a stronger adult, made me able to cope with things that the average person can't cope with sometimes, So like, I guess the one question I have related to all this is, how did you first discover that this person was a sociopath? Because you've used that term. I know narcissist would be probably a little easier to understand because you see all these signs we understand, but a sociopath is probably a lot more difficult to pinpoint. People can, be behind
Charming.
this facade for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. They could be very charming. Great question.
Thanks.
That is the best question. You're absolutely right. That is a great question to ask. The only way to know initially that you are involved with a sociopath is your intuition and your gut. So I want to explain this.
Okay.
When I first met the man that I ended up involved with, who is a sociopath, I didn't like him. There was something about him that rubbed me the wrong way. Couldn't put my finger on it.
Wow.
But I knew there was something about this guy that I do not like. And I'm like Miss Extroversion. I love people. The minute anybody walks into my office, I'm like, I love them. It's like, there's so much grace for me for humanity and human beings. This is why I do what I do. But there was something not right. He chased me for over an entire year. This is why I wrote the book, because I'm like, I didn't fall trap, over 2 days. I didn't think he was cute. I didn't even find him attractive. I found nothing attractive about this guy. So I didn't like him at any level. I didn't like him at any level.
He wore you down.
He did. That's the thing. They know how to chase. They know how to wear people down, and they know how to do it.
Wow.
So my intuition immediately told me there was something off with this guy. I thought maybe he was immature. So I'm like, okay, I don't need an immature man in my life. So I kind of ran. But he caught up with me because he was grooming me. And the grooming process is they desensitize you slowly but surely. You're being desensitized to their true intentions, which is to exploit you. And they use charm to bully you. They use kindness to bully you. He's very passive aggressive, the sociopath I was involved in. So he didn't come in and just strong arm me and bully me with like aggressive energy. He was bullying me with kindness and charm until I finally was able to trust, let my guard down. And the minute that happened, my chemistry went off because he knew what he was doing also. And my chemistry went off. So my chemistry actually went off while we were still acquaintance moving into a friendship. That's all it was, an acquaintanceship moving into a friendship. When my chemistry went off and I fell in love, and of course it was an addiction, which I had no idea because he had been grooming me already.
Wow.
So, but as victims, we identify with the love aspect and not the addiction part. We will see it later in the healing that it was an addiction. So it's easier for us to understand how the heck he got stuck there.
So he considered you a challenge because of your strengths.
Yes.
Not because of your weaknesses.
Yes. And financially, I also carried the strength in the relationship. So he was in position to exploit me emotionally, sexually, obviously, financially, and for predators, that's what they're looking for. They're not just looking for the easy prey. That's not a challenge. That's not a thrill. Their challenge and their thrill is looking for the person who has a lot to be exploited. The person who's well-rounded, who's well-liked, who's got a lot of friends, who belongs to clubs and organizations that they can target more people. So this is what I want to make sure, that there's a myth that, only the individuals with low self-esteem get caught up with these people. Oh my gosh, that is a myth. And please, we need to debunk that myth quickly, like pronto.
When did you first know that this was a toxic relationship? When did you first know that this guy was definitely, you had to find any way you could get out of this relationship?
Okay, so when you're addicted to somebody, you don't really think that way. It's no longer your logic brain in charge. It's now the subconscious that's responsible for the love. So you aren't thinking that logical or that logically. But I did know that he was unhealthy, so I spoke to him about it. I referred him to many different groups and things for him to continue his personal development, which he did. He followed through on every one of my suggestions. Another reason why I stayed. Then when he would act out and I felt devalued as a human being or degraded in any way, I would break up with him, which only threw us deeper into the cycle of abuse, because what happens is the perpetrator comes back and romances the victim right back. And because she doesn't realize, and I didn't realize, and even though I've educated people on this, I didn't realize that I was being pulled into the cycle of abuse through an addictive relationship. You can't, because you're seeing the predator through the eyes of love. This is why it's a complete trap. You're seeing them through the eyes of love. You're seeing them through the eyes of compassion. You're seeing them through the eyes of empathy, which says you have the possibility of evolution like any other human being, and I'm going to stand by you to evolve and be whoever you want to be, but I'm going to continue to provide you a safe place here with me so we can continue to evolve together, hopefully. And that's what happens.
Well, plus you're a healer, so you probably thought you could fix him. I mean, do you think that is something that we look at, or no?
No, because again, in order to get divorced, I believe I was a codependent partner in my marriage. So in order for me to actually let go of the marriage, let go of my divorce, I had to deal with my codependency issues. And plus, I deal with a lot of codependency in my practice. So I understood codependency. I understood boundaries. I have a really strong sense of self. I'm very independent. So I knew that first of all, I never wanted to marry this man. I never wanted him to be in my life forever. So I wasn't going to change him so that he could be with me forever.
Okay.
I wanted to experience our relationship as it was. So we had fun. We had very beautiful, intimate conversations, which of course I had no idea they would just be. It was my level of intimacy being mirrored back to me. So it was wonderful. I teach people how to do this. So he was mirroring it right back to me. It was like the most intimate, most loving, at least the aspects that were good, were amazing. So I wanted to enjoy that in that present moment and figured I'll give him his space since he was following through on all my recommendations to go do what he needed to do to evolve. But in reality, he was just using it to learn more tactics to continue to manipulate me and others and to keep us trapped with him. So no, I never wanted to change him at the logical level. However, as I went through my healing, I understood also why my chemistry went off so crazy with him. My chemistry went off the charts, and then I understood why. And then I understood how that trauma that I had in childhood, or actually it was in my adolescent years, how that trauma then played a part in keeping me fooled, basically, and blinded, because that trauma wanted to heal itself with this predator, and it wasn't going to, but it certainly got exposed through this relationship. You see that?
Yeah.
I didn't have access to that trauma, but this relationship opened me right up to have access to my previous traumas that have not been healed yet, or had not been healed at the time, and then I was able to deal with that reality and deal with that victimization that I did experience in adolescent years.
Wow. So what do you want from love trauma to fearless love to teach us?
I think the number one thing here is that our greatest mission on this planet is to love and be loved, So even though we have had to embrace so much darkness and grievance and it's so disorienting to be coming out of an abusive relationship. Even though all that stuff is real, we have to deal with all that reality. Don't give up on love. Don't give up on yourself. Love is still our greatest mission, and it's still the best thing for us as human beings. The number one thing that determines our happiness in this world, it's not money, it's not our education, it's not how many friends we have. It's love. And it's love in an intimate space within a marriage, within a family, whatever, your intimate space looks like. That's where our happiness lies. So never to give up on love, ever, never, ever.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm sure there are people going through this right now who will listen to this and say, I'm never gonna date again. I'm never getting married again. I'm never gonna. Now, here's my thought. Never say never to anything you think you might ever do, because never is a long, long time.
Exactly.
So I've said never twice, and both times I meant it. But in relationships, I think it would be very difficult, because we are human beings, like you said. So what would you tell someone who's in need of finding the silver lining in their own heartbreak and love trauma?
It is not your fault. Love renews. Keep the faith. If I can do this, so can you. Trust me, it was hard and dark and ugly. And there were times that I actually prayed to God to just take me. I couldn't take any more darkness. I couldn't believe that such dark, evil people existed in this planet. I had no idea. But once you're able to accept that darkness, you're able to then synthesize the truth of our humanity and that love and evil does coexist. Good and bad people do coexist, and we all have a choice, to live in light or live in darkness. I choose to live in light.
It's the yin and yang of life.
Mm-hmm.
So hold up your book again and tell us what the best way to get a copy of it. From love trauma to fearless love.
Well, you know what? The book is not out just yet. It will be out on Halloween in a few days.
Halloween.
Yes, on Halloween.
2 days. That's a week from today.
Yes, it will be available on Amazon. So you can just go into Amazon, and From Love Trauma to Fearless Love should be available to you on Halloween. And the other place you can go to will be my website. The page for my book is lovetrauma.com. So if you Google lovetrauma.com, it will take you to my page for my book within Fearless Love, which is my practice. So fearlesslove.net is my practice for counseling and coaching.
And they can even get a free excerpt, can't they, from your book?
Yes, they can. If they do lovetrauma.com, they'll take them right to the page. They can read about the book and download the free excerpt.
So again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Heidi, the one question that we didn't talk about, like, why am I releasing this book on Halloween?
Oh, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Good question.
I was like, I think I need to talk about why I chose it. People ask me, like, why are you releasing your book on Halloween?
Getting rid of our demons. No,
I
don't know.
Well, actually, I think I chose for a couple of reasons. First, narcissists and sociopaths wear masks. Yeah. And a relationship with a narcissist or a sociopath is not just scary. It is the most gruesome, disgusting thing you'll ever encounter in your life. I can't imagine anything else more gruesome and scarier than being involved with one of these frauds. So that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is that my book starts out with a Halloween party where everybody's in a costume and, in some sort of facade. So if you download the book and if you purchase the book, you're going to be entering into the best or hottest Halloween party of the year. And you're going to be learning a lot about the masks that narcissists and sociopaths wear so that hopefully you can avoid being a prey.
Excellent. So how can we learn more about Jianny Adamo and all the things that you do? Because your book is probably the culmination of so many of your experiences, but you do so much more than that.
Oh yeah, I'm a marriage counselor. I represent love, and I will continue to.
The love doctor. You heal people.
Yes.
I think that's already taken, so we won't say that again. Anyway, yes. So the best way to get a hold of you.
Through the website, fearlesslove.net, Jianny at fearlesslove.net. On probably the best ways to get a hold of me. I'm also on Facebook on Fearless Love LLC, and I'm on Twitter and all the social media places.
Yes, Instagram, everywhere. Mm-hmm. We can find you everywhere. So I think it's wonderful, and I'm looking forward to your book launch, and I'm excited to be working with you a little bit and helping you and to see this beautiful work of art that you have created come to life to help so many people. So I want to thank you, Jianny, for being with us today on the Entrepreneur Show. And again, hold up your book one more time and tell us how we can get a hold of it.
Thank you, Heidi. Fearlesslove.net or lovetrauma.com.
Excellent. So from love trauma to fearless love, we've been talking to Jianny Adamo, and be sure and tune in to the Entrepreneur Show for shows like this and others. And thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you.
Hold on. Hold this.